Go ahead. Finally, we're live. So those of you just tuning in for our next guest here on the AFC podcast, we actually have a former podcast producer. His name is Mr. Rob Stroller. So we're going to spend an hour or so and get to know each other better. And be sure that if you haven't already, like and subscribe for all notifications on the next episode of the AFC podcast. Hey, Rob, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate being here. Anything that moves the film world and the production world forward is good with me. I've been doing it for a long time. I have a company called Art in Motion. We've been in business for like 30 years, and most of our stuff is documentary in nature, and most of our clients have been nonprofits. Funny, we were just talking about your nonprofit. Nonprofits are everywhere. So I've worked with lots of hospitals. I've done a lot of work for no particular reason with people living with disabilities. It sort of was a niche for a long, long time. I think because I realized that they moved me. They inspired me because I can't tell you how many people I've worked with in the most difficult living situations. Quadriplegics. I worked with a guy who lost all 4 limbs when he was 4. Another kid, Simon Illa, who's a brilliant music producer, recently passed, unfortunately, who had osteogenesis imperfecta. But virtually all of them at some point told me how good life is. So I think for me, probably the biggest benefit is never feeling sorry for myself, because I have so many people in my life that have reason to feel sorry for themselves and they don't. So I realize I really don't have any reason to feel sorry for myself, so I won't. But yeah, that's been a big part of my sort of filmmaking career, has been telling stories about people that I think can inspire other people. The inspiration was never from me, but I was always the messenger and I enjoyed it. Still do. And actually, I'm not a former podcast producer. I'm about to launch another podcast probably in the next 2 weeks with a friend of mine from Seattle. And that podcast is called 3P Champions. Those 3 Ps being passion, purpose, and principle.
Nice.
So Greg Stern in Seattle is a former D1 athlete. I've played a lot of sports and I've coached high school sports and played baseball in college. And so a lot of the people we feature are former athletes, Hall of Fame coaches, Dale Brown, artists, teachers, mentors, people, many of whom had a difficult beginning, difficult upbringing. Dale Brown, for instance, who's the former Hall of Fame coach from LSU. When I spoke with him on the phone through Greg, I ended up leaving that call thinking that he was the greatest humanitarian I'd ever spoken with. He's been to 90 countries. He lived with Mother Teresa. The Lakota tribe gave him an Indian name.
Wow, man.
He's a warrior for underprivileged people. And we didn't talk at all about basketball. And he's a Hall of Fame coach. And I felt like basketball was kind of the least important element in his life. So that's what sort of kicked off the 3P Champions, because then we wanted to surround ourselves with people who exemplified the kind of things that he did. And it's been pretty remarkable. We've interviewed over 40 people. And as I say, we're getting ready to launch pretty soon.
So how many seasons have you done?
We haven't launched at all yet. I've just interviewed 40 3P champions.
Oh my gosh.
We're just about to issue the first podcast, which the first one is about a guy named Derek Sparks, who
He's a New York Giant.
No, no, but a friend of mine, my friend's kid plays tight end for the Giants.
Okay, let's go,
Chris
man.
Myrick. Yeah, he went to Temple.
Stop. Oh my
Now
God, bro.
He's on the Giants. Yeah.
Let's
I
go.
knew him when he was like 2 feet tall. Now
Oh my
he's
God.
6'6",
Yeah.
260. But Derek Sparks was a top 3 football player in the country in high school. He went to Mater Dei High. He'd gone to a couple of high schools, was kind of mishandled by his uncle, who saw him as a meal ticket because he really was a sensational running back. He had a tryout with the 49ers, got hurt, but he grew up dirt poor, raised by a single mother. He said the only room in the house that had heat was the bathroom. So his uncle got him out of Texas, sent him to California, and he was moved around a lot, kind of abused by the system. Ended up writing a book called Lessons of the Game, became a renowned high school and college coach, speaker, teacher, mentor, and unfortunately, a few months after we recorded his interview, he was diagnosed with late-stage cancer and didn't survive. So
Oh no.
he's going to be the first podcast we release. And the whole thing is so ironic because throughout the podcast, what he talked about was what was his phrase? I'm blanking on the phrase, but it was about making the most of your time on Earth.
Right.
With no knowledge that his time at that point was limited. He just talked about making every moment count, making every moment be important, and particularly in helping young people. That was his mission.
How old was he when he passed?
I would say he was probably 50, 52.
I think about age now that I just hit mid-30s, and just barely 15 years ago, I did my very first play, like day one of it all. And just to be at that halfway mark, I can't even imagine turning 52. And it's like, you really don't know how much time you have except the now. And God bless this guy, Mr. Sparks, like making the most of your time on Earth. I'm so sorry for your loss, man. Like, I'm sure this guy had so much left.
He did, but he lived every minute with purpose. And so, if everything happens for a reason, I never know why good people, suffer bad things, but he helped a lot of people. He left a real impression. So I was honored to meet him. I actually just hit 70.
You don't look it.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't feel it. Well, I still have a kid in college, so it kept me young. But
You must be a doctor.
the sports and kids keep you young, man, and your attitude keeps you young. And I interview so many young people and work with a lot of young people, and I feel young. My bones, not so much, but I'm still competing. I'm still beating people in tennis, racquetball, whatever they want to play. But I'm not 30 anymore. But I just my wife threw me a pretty significant birthday party, and I realized I essentially lived in New York till I was 35. And then I moved to Philly, and I've been in Philly for 35 years. So, man, my life at that point so I had a room full of people who made the first half of my life great, and another half of the room that made the second half of my life great. And bottom line is, I've had a pretty good time of it.
Well, here's to the third act and the next 30
Yeah, I mean,
years,
I'm
man.
still, I think the 3P Champs is going to be an exciting venture. I think people are going to get a lot out of it. There are athletes, artists, Hall of Fame musicians, you know, a woman I know who used to dance for the Pennsylvania Ballet. Now she started a modern ballet company in Philly, and
Oh, wow.
she's driven, and her work is fantastic. And I've known her since she was a dancer. Now she's kind of an impresario, but Christine Cox and this collection of people that we've spoken with are just of the highest order. Every single one of them. For a while, every time Greg and I hung up from the Zoom call, we'd be like, holy shit, he's the coolest guy ever. Jakey, I love you, man. My kid's going, so my son, I have two boys. One of them's in college now. This one, the older one, was a scholarship baseball player for 4 years at Felician, actually, in Rutherford, New Jersey, a D2 school. And now he's coaching baseball.
Oh, for like a minor league?
He's coaching at Rosemont College and for an organization called Uncommon Baseball. But, you know, he's just out of college and he got 2 coaching jobs and he's great. You know, I go to watch him coach. I go to watch their games. I used to go to watch him play. Now I go to watch him coach. So
what's the age range of the kids he works with?
Well, Rosemont's college kids, you know, and they've only had their program for 2 years. So, and, you know, in his first year coaching with him, the head coach made him the third base coach. And he's the infield coach because he was a shortstop. And, you know, he's just got all the qualities, kind of like these 3P champions. He's in it. He understands he's in it for the kids on the team. He knows it's not about him. Too many coaches think they're the most important guy on the field. They're not.
Yeah, like God's gift to baseball.
They're not.
Right.
Plus, if any of them watch baseball, I mean, we were watching the Phillies last night. You know, Wheeler had a great game going. They got like 5 hits in a row, and none of them would have broken a plane of glass. They're just swinging bunts and bloop hits and this and that. And any coach that thinks they're responsible for what happens, they're wrong, man. The ball that's 3 inches foul is a strike. If it's 3 inches fair, it could be a triple. They didn't have anything to do with it. So a coach is there to teach. A coach is a teacher. And I've done a lot of coaching, and I understand, you know, you're there to help. You're there as a mentor. And if you help them get better at baseball, that's great. But, you know, help prepare them for what they're going to do next. If it's baseball, that's great. If it's not, that's also great. You know? Absolutely.
I too played baseball growing up, and unfortunately, sometime around the 8th grade, and there's so much about this concept of playing basketball. Like I broke my arm for the first time playing basketball, like at gym class, and it was like in the middle of winter, and it actually prevented me from trying out for the modified team because at that time we didn't have. I grew up in Goshen, New York, and of course, you had rec baseball and great ball players and a decent, reliable coaching, reliable players, love for the game. It's all like it was all there.
Yeah.
And there were times where like I would actually, you know, athletically, especially with the coaching of my father around, because he was a phenomenal, like stupid good baseball player, you know, he really was. And he would work with me up until the point where he just couldn't coach me anymore because I was too old. When I broke my arm, that really, it kind of, I don't know about jaded, getting the right term, but I just remember I was so.
Did you throwing on?
It was actually my left arm. It was actually my lead batting hand, and I remember trying to turn my hand over while I would actually swing, and it would just feel so restricted. When I made contact, I would automatically get shock in my opposite hand because I'm compensating for my left. And that was really frustrating. And I didn't play for over a year. And I even stopped like in the late 90s watching baseball because like I grew up like most kids loving the same team that their dad does, diehard New York New York Giants fan. Yes, but no, New York Yankees fan. I remember like throughout the 90s, especially when we were winning back-to-back World Series, I loved baseball. I couldn't even tell you who's on the team today because it's not there like it used to be. That's why I say jaded, because like there are so many times when I miss it and I see it and I sense it, because this past weekend was opening season for my nephew's like T-ball league. Yeah. And of course it was the exact same fields I grew up on, just watching them play, going to the park, looking in the old dugouts to see if that Playboy magazine is still hidden in there. And, you know, like it sparked that little amber back, you know, and I never really gave it much thought, but I don't know. Do you ever feel like that happens to a lot of kids where maybe?
I think it does. And like I said, I coached for decades, and I was the district coach in my town, and I coached varsity baseball at high school. And, you know, baseball is just a funny game. And I believe you're either born to play it or you're not. So if I see a kid who's still playing baseball at 15 or 16, they love the game. You wouldn't play it at that age if you don't love it, if you don't find the downtime interesting, if you're not thinking about, you know, either laying down a bunt because the third baseman's too deep, or where you are in the game, or the difference between a 1-2 count and a 2-1 count, or whatever it might be. It may not be the sport for you. But, you know, bad coaches can ruin a kid's love for a game. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And something like, you know, an accident, you know, if life throws something in your path, it might disturb you. It might not. I mean, I did like the videos I've talked about with people living with disabilities. You know, they don't spend a lot of time. I worked with 2 kids with cerebral palsy. They were 2 of 3 triplets, but the third brother didn't get CP. He was born first, and they both suffered it. But, you know, they told me that they were both basketball fans. They managed the basketball team in high school. And they just said, you know, their legs just don't work well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've realized life it's about your character. It's easy to be a great guy when everything's going well. Yeah. And even as a baseball coach, and I've spoken with scouts at a high level, and generally they're looking to see how a kid handles failure. Yeah. You know, everybody's a great guy when they go 4 for 4. How do you do when you go 0 for 4? Even if you're a hell of a player, how do you handle going 0 for 4? And I've coached a lot of kids, and I can look at a kid. I had one kid who he didn't end up playing in college just because I don't think he ever really had a position. But he was like shaving at 13. You know, he was a man child. But I remember coaching him in a pretty big game, and he got struck out, you know, and he just like took the bat off his shoulder, walked back to the bench, got ready to play D, and there was no demonstration of anything. Was he disappointed? Sure. Did he bitch about it? Not even that much. And I think character is a critical element to somebody's makeup. Yeah. And I'm much more interested in, you know, how a kid responds to difficulty than how he responds to, you know, easy success. And I think that's true in a lot of cases. You know, it's how you handle the disappointment.
Well, even as kids, like, would that be an attribute, like, you know, when a kid throws a temper tantrum and they're developing at different stages, slower, faster, Is that a coachable thing where you could actually approach your player and actually give them like real coaching and instruction?
It's funny because, and I've had a lot of kids who did that. I had a kid who once spit on somebody and his father was there. So I'm waiting for his father to wring his freaking neck.
Yeah.
Tell him if you ever do that again, it'll be the last time you ever play.
Yeah.
But he didn't. So I took the kid aside. And I just told him, and coaches, I think, do end up in that position where they act like a parental, individual. And I told this kid, number one, if I ever see it again, you'll never play for me again. Number two, I'm a coach. I talk to a lot of other coaches. You don't want us talking about your behavior. You want us talking about your game and your attitude in a positive way. And so I think it is coachable, but it's got to happen pretty early. I knew another kid that was pitching against us, and I think he walked a couple of kids and hit a kid, and then was like starting to whine. Do I have to stay out here? And his father from the crowd said, you stay out there until the coach takes you off. And he said, shut up. And again, I'm waiting for his father to come out and pull him off the field by his ear.
Yeah.
So I got a hold of, I ended up coaching that kid on the district team. So the first day of practice, and I didn't know him well, but I knew who he was. I put everybody in a position and I put him in right field, and he's like, really? I had to play right field?
I played right field.
Yeah. I said, no, you don't have to play right field. You know where you can go if you don't want to play right field? And he looks at me and he's like, the bench? Yeah. I said, yeah, or home.
Yeah, home.
Either one. And I never had another issue with that kid again. And he's actually pitching in college now and doing great. He's at Ursinus. But somebody has to tell a kid, it's not cool. I'm not going to stand for it. You can leave right now because I won't go for that. And if you set up ground rules for most kids, that's all you need to do. But I was constantly amazed. Like, if my kid ever said, shut up to me, particularly in front of people, oh, you'd read about it in the papers. That isn't going to fly for a second. And I've had coaches thank me for teaching their, I've had to have the talk with kids about, Hall of Famers fail 2 out of 3 times. If you succeed 1 out of 3 times for your career, you're going to the Hall of Fame, and because people just freak out when they strike out or when they fail. And life is about failure. You got to understand that's going to happen to you, and deal with it. Don't cry about it. Deal with it. Try to get better. Understand it.
Well, it's a lesson, really.
Absolutely.
Even with a loss, it's not a defeat. It's a lesson learned.
Correct.
Especially with baseball, you're going to get it. You're going to come to the plate again, but you got to be exactly. Now you actually have a better perspective on and to prepare you for that next pitch.
Absolutely. And if you're still thinking about the last one, that's going to hurt you. So, and I think that's part of a coach's responsibility and a parent's responsibility to lend that perspective. Let a kid know it's okay. You're going to get another chance. You're going to play again tomorrow. You're going to get up again in the 7th. You're probably going to get up with people on base. You're going to get a chance to win this game, So I think there are so many negative forces that it's incumbent upon a lot of us to be positive. Even, I've taught at the college level. I've taught production. I've taught a lot of different things. Same kind of deal. You're still a coach. You're coaching a kid on making a movie that's important to him. It's not always going to work out. You're going to get bad weather. You're going to have a camera stolen, whatever might happen. that's not the important thing. The important thing is keep doing what is meaningful to you and do the best job you possibly can, no matter what.
So with your podcast and your co-host, does he have a similar background as a coach as you do?
No, he hasn't really coached, but he played D1 basketball in Washington. He played for Washington State. So, and he's great. And I can play ball. When I met him, well, you know, his road when he was in 7th grade, he was a little kid. He was undersized. Now, yeah, I mean, I guess he grew to about 6'1" and was super skilled. But as a little kid, he was little. And in 7th grade, he went to a basketball camp at Gonzaga. And his coach was John Stockton. Now, I don't know if you know who John Stockton is, but he's the career leader in assists, career leader in the NBA, wow, and career leader in steals. So he was like 6'1", played with Karl Malone, played for Utah most of his career. Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. Like I said, most assists and steals in the history of the NBA. And he told Greg, as a 7th grader, you got skills. You can be great.
Wow.
You're going to have to work hard because you're small, but I'm telling you, I believe in you. And that, the power of belief, is a big part of the podcast. So Greg wasn't necessarily a coach, but, you know, he's got a coach's persona. So he certainly knows how to coach. He certainly had a lot of coaches. He's appreciated a lot of coaches. Now he has a kid named Austin, who I think is 11 now and is sensational. He's also little, but sensational. I mean, really skilled. So Greg brings a lot of perspective to his own kid and pretty much to anybody he meets. So he hasn't coached as much as I have, just because he's done other things, but he understands the value, the critical value of a coach, and particularly one who says, I believe in you. You can be great.
No, yeah.
All of a sudden, a kid who's wondering if he's any good at all, somebody who's been to the highest levels says you can be great. It changes you. Belief is, I think, the most powerful thing you can instill in somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a hell of a guy. And the one time I did play basketball with him, he was still telling me things that John Stockton had taught him as a 7th grader. He's now over 50, but he showed me some of the things, you know, and I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, I don't know if you're a basketball player per se, but first he says to me, okay, you know, get in a defensive position. So I get in a defensive position. He's got the ball in his hand. I slap the ball out of his hand. He's like, Rob, we didn't start yet, you know? Hey, well, listen, man, you told me to get in a that's my defensive position. Put the ball in front of me and I'm going to take it. So then he does a little stutter step and goes past me on either side and like butts me out of the way with his head.
Oh, he did like the ankle slip move where he didn't actually quite slip, but he stretched. He sort of did like the reverse Heisman and just went past you.
Well, he just bullied me, literally, physically, like
just overpowered
pushed me out of the way with his head, and then went in, hit the layup, and said he would probably get an N1. It would be my foul, but he bumped me out of the way with his head, and I was like, holy shit, nobody ever did that to me before. And he just, you know, it's a quick move, it's a strong move, and if you're not quick enough to be right in front of him, you're getting bulldozed.
It's all technique.
It is. Technique and repetition.
So did you ever have like a sport of preference? Because you seem very well educated, versed between baseball, football, and basketball.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed playing. I love playing basketball because that was kind of the most personal of the sports for me. You
okay,
know, if I was playing a guy, I wanted to shut him down and I wanted to bully him. I wanted to score on him or make the pass. I always wanted to win. I never wanted to cheat, but I always wanted to win. And I'm paying for it now, man. I've had a hip replacement, I've had a knee replacement, and I'm going to get the other one replaced. I'll replace everything if I can, because I still want to compete. But I'd say baseball, I had a baseball player's soul. I just love baseball. I was a Yankee fan growing up. I got a Mickey Mantle signed ball.
let's go.
I got a Willie Mays signed ball too. Um,
Did you get a Ted Williams?
I actually do have a Ted Williams ball.
Nice.
So, I once answered an ad. A guy was selling a digital video camera for $300 on Craigslist. So I'm like, well, it's probably not something I can use, but maybe he doesn't know. Maybe somebody gave it to him and he doesn't want it. So I go to meet this guy in South Philly. He's wearing like a Phillies sweatsuit, and I'm wearing a Phillies shirt because they were in the World Series race. It was either 2008 when they won it.
It was recent. You mean 2018, 17?
Well, they won it in 2008. They didn't win the World Series in 18. They were in it last year, but they won it when they had Chase Utley and those guys. So Cole Hamels. So I look at the camera and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not really anything I can use. But I had my $300 on me. And he goes, you a baseball fan? I was like, yeah. He goes, well, I worked at the vet for 40 years. You want to look at some stuff? I was like, sure, I'll look at some stuff. So for my $300, I got a Willie Mays ball, a Ted Williams ball, an Ernie Banks ball. I don't know if you know Ernie Banks. He was the greatest shortstop ever for the Cubs. And Willie Mays may have been the greatest baseball player ever. And then he threw in a Pete Rose ball. So I walked out of there with Ted Williams, Ernie Banks, Willie Mays, and Pete Rose for my $300. But my sister had given me a Mickey Mantle ball a long time ago. He was my guy. I wore number 7 in high school and college. My son Jake wore number 7 in high school and college.
I was always trying to keep Yogi Berra's number. I think it was number 8.
Yeah, he was number 8.
Yeah, that used to be my number, but eventually I got moved to right field. But as a catcher for the majority of my career, moving to right field, it got a little boring out there. But to me it was still playing baseball,
Yeah.
But I hadn't broken my arm yet, so
yeah.
Actually, I lied.
That's a shame,
wrong.
but
I went to right field in. Oh no, it was before. It was in 7th grade, not 8th grade. Yeah, my last good year playing baseball was in the junior division after the majors. And that's right. Yeah, I moved out to right field once in a while, but it was kind of like a shared position, because a lot of coaches, a lot of us, especially in 7th and 8th grade, it seemed like they were really preparing us for high school, because they would have us be like sort of like a swing position. You got a good strength here, but let's work on you out here, and just like develop you as a more rounded player,
Yeah.
Not just
as youngsters, right field got a lot of play because nobody could pull the ball at that age. Everybody was late on fastballs and everything went to second base and right field. But, I told kids if they looked disappointed in right field, I was like, there are a lot of right fielders in the Hall of Fame. Roberto Clemente,
Oh, yeah. He actually has an entire park in the Bronx dedicated to him.
Oh, he was one of a kind. My son's got his picture in his room. My kid's kind of a throwback. throwback kid. So a lot of kids today wouldn't even know who Roberto Clemente is, but Jake always had his picture up there. And, whatever position you're playing, be the best guy in the league, whatever. I don't care where it is. I was a shortstop and Jake was a shortstop, and I never, ever wanted to be anything but a shortstop. I just was in love with the position, everything about it. And I was a good shortstop because I had the head for it.
Yeah.
I could physically, I could play it, but I did things that I don't think a lot of people at that time were doing, like, and this will be my last baseball reference, but
we don't know about that.
well, I don't know about that either, but if there were guys on first and second and one out, and it was a slow ball hit to second and he flipped it to me at second base, I'd make the play at second. I would fake the throw to first, like with everything as an actor. I'm acting like I am throwing that guy at first, knowing I'm never going to get him at first. But the guy on third, as soon as he sees me throw to first,
he's turning home, and
I'll turn around and nail him at third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's smart quarterback move right there.
Did it, I probably did it once a game to most teams, and then they never ran again. Same thing on, guy on second, guy hits a single to the outfield. I take the cutoff. I fake the throw to the plate like I'm going to nail that guy who's scoring from second. As soon as I go like that, the kid who hit the ball rounds first, he's dead.
Done.
Yeah. So that stuff, I used to just love beating people with my head and my arm. And so, yeah, baseball is in some ways my favorite. Right now the only thing I can really play now is tennis and racquetball, but racquetball is not the same sport tennis is. But
not too many good movies about tennis, or
there are a couple now.
I was going to say, have you ever seen Big, where they're playing racquetball in the park?
I've seen Big. I don't remember the racquetball in the park.
It was Tom Hanks and the dad.
I remember the movie, but I don't remember him playing racquetball.
Well, it's how he ended up. Tom's character ended up getting punched in the nose because they were playing racquetball. Right? Yeah,
I'll have to revisit it. But there's a movie about McEnroe and Bjorn Borg, I think. It's a documentary. It's great. It's absolutely great. Documentary about and there's one I think about Federer and Rafa Nadal as well, which is also great. But they're like I say, they're documentaries. They're not. I haven't seen any kind of narrative films about tennis that I would watch.
There was one with Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow. Back in, I think it could have been 2015. I don't know if it was like the Ultimate Game or the world's deadliest game. But it was I forget the actor's name who played against Kit Harington's character, but it was basically a spoof parody about two characters, the ultimate tennis players of all time, going toe to toe.
Yeah.
That's a narrative one. It's a comedy, but it's just one of those things of ridiculousness, and kind of made it looked like it was more fun to make than it was to actually sit down and watch.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah. So what do you do in terms of film? What's your strength?
I guess where it all began was as an actor. I was compromised because basketball ended my baseball career when I was a kid, or it had an impact where it redirected me on another path.
Yeah.
And after graduating high school, I was a construction worker first, and I wanted to save up and prepare to go to college, at least to play football. And my goal was to start at Division III, go to Troy, New York. I think it was Hudson Community College. And and I was a plumbing major at the time, and they had a tech program, so it was sort of like it sort of seemed like the right fit, and it was community college. So I thought, all right, why not give it a shot, be a walk-on. So that was back in 2005 going into 2006. So for about a year I worked, and I was ready to go to college. So I ended up applying or going upstate, wanting to go upstate. But along that summer, I was playing basketball, but I slipped while playing basketball because an air conditioner was leaking onto the basketball court. And it was just like a freak slip, right in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I dislocated my shoulder, and I didn't know it at the time. I had to go to the hospital that night. When I fell, I remember blacking out for a moment, and that was it. I drove myself to the hospital, and within an hour I was shaking like a leaf. Like the adrenaline was finally wearing off, but the ridiculous amount of pain I was in from my shoulder, I didn't know how bad it truly was.
Yeah.
And even the CAT scans didn't know how bad it truly was because they couldn't really get a good shot. So that was in August of 2006. So it was literally around 2 weeks before preseason, or the week before. It was right there. And I ended up missing school. So for several months, I kind of just rested. It must have been actually, I went back to work as an iron worker right after I got out of the cast. But while I was continuing working for the following year, that pain in the shoulder never went away. Also in that accident, when I hurt my shoulder, what they did see is that I had an avulsion fracture on my right ankle. It was in the same accident.
Wow.
And it was like the perfect angle of my body weight and the slip of just avulsion fracture. Like the ligament was still intact. It just ripped right off the bone and took a chunk of the bone with it. Nice. And it hurt, and it wouldn't heal right, but my shoulder just never stopped hurting. And while working in foundations in New York City construction, bro, through the winter, the cold kind of helped, but like the endurance, the strength, not 100% there, and it really, really hurt in like summer of 2007, where I guess something is really, really wrong. So I took a break from construction, but I had to wait until start actually seeing the doctor because union benefits didn't really kick in until like July of 2007. So the second I got my insurance eligibility, I had to stop. It was too painful to even work. So I'm going for countless medical evaluations to try to figure out what the hell's going on. And we find a shoulder doctor where they wanted to actually cut in and overlap and try to like fix everything right there. So, we ended up getting a couple second opinions, and thank God we did, because we ended up going to an Albany specialist, and it was Dr. Alfondre. And God bless that guy at Northeastern Orthopedics. I still remember this guy, and I haven't talked about this in so long. He found a labrum tear, and it was actually orthoscopic surgery, and it was in such a position where the CAT scan did not see it, and you could actually see in the original CAT scan, the actual original X-ray, sort of like the space difference between my left shoulder and my right shoulder, but it wasn't really like enough to really suggest whatever he found, because they did a CAT scan as a follow-up because of the pain, and it's like there's nothing there. Yeah. He went and found the tear and fixed it. So what ended up happening was I got the surgery in December of 2007, and my health care is now about to expire because I haven't worked in construction for the last 5 or 6 months. So I was obligated to go to college in January of 2008. And that's where acting all began. I could not go to the gym. I was a business major at the time. And I thought perhaps maybe by doing a theater production show, I was always interested in it, but never really took it to heart. In high school, especially, it was way too shy.
Yeah.
So I tried my first musical because that was available, and it kind of just, kept me from needing to go home, gave me something to do as a fun activity. But then all of a sudden I was the guy that, the new guy on the block, because all these other theater people knew each other from the Middletown Rec Center, from the Orange County Art Society, you name it. These people know each other. And I literally come out of left field. I did, like, nobody knew who I was, but they keep asking me, hey, you mind working with us on this musical? And that's how it all started. Like, it was just like, hey, we're doing this. You want to jump in, help out? I'm like, sure, why not? And they recommended that, why not next semester? Now that you got the intro to theater, why don't you actually try an acting class? So in the spring of 2008, that's exactly what I did. And of course, I took the baseball class and the athletic classes, and I'm kind of, that's how I actually met Dan Miller. Shout out Dan Miller. God rest his soul. He passed away last summer. And all of a sudden, I get discovered by this journalist named Chris Farlakis, and he was just kind of watching me throughout that semester, and really watched my performance at my thesis going into Christmas of 2008. Now here we are a year later. And I had a choice. Like, do I want to go back to construction or stay in school a little bit longer? So I decided to stay in school a little bit longer. And little did I know that other people in the audience that day were actually watching me from the film department. So I got scouted to do their thesis for their student film the following month. So that led to my first independent film called Village Music. And little did I know that this guy, Chris Farlakis, a journalist, was keeping an eye on me as well, because he ended up seeing the movie, and he ended up recommending this film festival called the Black Bear Film Festival in either West or Milford, Pennsylvania. And in 2009, that's exactly where it went. And all of a sudden, the producer director of that festival, his name is Bill Schill, he approaches me and says, go study in New York. And all of a sudden, it's almost like my fourth and final semester at Orange County Community College. I'm doing my very first play in 2009, around that time when all this was happening. And I'm kind of like really comfortable doing it. And I just did the Cherry Orchard, very first play. I got a film under my belt. So they recommend, the film producer of the festival, Bill Schill, recommended I go study at the New York Conservatory for the Dramatic Arts of Film, Television, and Theater. I'm like, okay. And that's exactly what I did. Right after I was done at OC. I didn't know I was really done at OC, but 2 years went by so quick, and it was just a community college, and that was it. And next thing you know, I get accepted into a conservatory. And at the time, I had no idea, like 12 years later, this was where I was going to be.
Welcome to Happy Corner. This project strives to make safe housing areas for stray cats at an affordable price. It's so easy to put together that even your children could have fun making one. Help keep cats and other animals safe with their own little Happy Corner homes. You can help this project become a reality by donating to the GoFundMe page. Happy Corner homes are a great way to show those animals in need it's okay to be happy.
Like, I got to tell you, Rob, like, I did not stop getting involved with saying yes to anything that anybody in that foundational network were looking for actors in a summer stock theater program in a different county, saying, all right, yeah, I'm not working, I'm in school.
Yeah.
Not really anyway, so why not? And I'm comfortable doing it. And it just led to a bunch of films, like small things, but I was getting in the reps, and I was reading for the first time. I didn't mention it before, but I was in special ed English my entire life. But when I got more comfortable on the stage and embodying the character, reading everything and listening more, actually got those reading and eye coordination skills that I lack.
That's interesting.
Thank you. And it's really strange. It really contributed to like that underdevelopment that I had throughout 5th to 12th grade. I was in special ed pretty much the entire time. And since I actually understand the value of a film festival. Like if I didn't do that film, I definitely wouldn't have been here right now.
Yeah.
So to kind of go back to your question of where I'm at, like as an actor, I got it. I know it. I'm pretty good at like even helping other actors with little techniques on not to coach or accidental. And you never as an actor want to be that guy of telling other actors what to do. But if in a pinch, I do know how to coach. I kind of have a general understanding on how to just like maybe get out of your head, stupid little silly techniques that I learned at the conservatory or from experience, etc. But from the value of that film festival, it really encouraged me to produce a film festival of my own. And that's exactly what we did this past January.
Interesting.
And it was actually a New York City film festival called the Triborough Film Festival, which is a Battle of the Boroughs exclusive film festival for New Yorkers, whether you were born here, raised here, from here, or it's about here. And where am I now, dude? I truly don't know, because I only started the Astoria Filmmakers Club because I never got that next level break. You know, I didn't get the job or something, you know, just, it really bothers me. It truly bothers me, because I went to all the agent showcases. I put myself out there. I learned the monologue. I got the compliments, but I never got the gig.
Yeah.
You know, and that really
I can tell you. So we've had similar paths. Okay. When I got out of college, I got my first job was a production job in Manhattan, but I also went to the Strasberg Theater Institute and studied under John Strasberg and Ellen Endicott and Sally Kirkland, and I knew I could act. But actually, my dad, to his regret later, kind of talked me out of it, talked me into going with the job and forgetting the acting for the time being. So, you know, at this stage, for a while there, probably for like 15 years, I would do one play a year, you know, a full length. I was on the board of a theater company, and I was involved in that community. I would do one play a year. Then when I had kids, I stopped doing plays, but I started doing like independent films. I hosted and produced a TV show on PBS for 2 seasons, where it was an interview-based show. But you know, I still do acting now. I pick my projects and go through backstage. They send me a lot of stuff, so I still do some independent films. I still do some voiceover stuff, and the whole time I was, you know, I coached baseball. I was my life has been kind of a mosaic of all the things I enjoy, which include camera work, producing, acting, coaching, sports, you know, disabilities, music, all of it. So I'm sure you're still going to do a lot of acting. And you know, you're young enough at this point where, who knows, somebody could still see your work and like you for something. But at this point, you know, I think sometimes I think like, you know, I should have gone for the acting full time. I'm sure I could have been successful, but then I also realized that I wouldn't have the life I have now. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty damn happy with my life. I got 2 great boys. My wife and I just celebrated 25 years. I had been married when I was 26 for a year and a half. It just wasn't right. Neither of us was particularly happy. So I got out of it quickly. And then I didn't get married again for almost 20 years. So then I finally got remarried when I was like 45. And I had my youngest kid when I was just about 50. So that's sort of the path my life's taken. And if I had done anything differently in the early years, or if I had, you know, pursued the acting full time or gone to LA or whatever, I'm sure I would have done well, but I wouldn't have this. And I like this, you know, I'm okay with what I have. I'm not I don't yearn for what might have happened had I remained an actor after I was, 22. So I still get a kick out of doing some films and acting, and I enjoy it. And I'm still good at it. It just was never my career.
Sure.
But I'm sure, you're going to do all of it. It'll just, you'll take opportunities when they present themselves, and the skills will never leave you.
True.
You'll just go from, playing the young son to the older son to the young dad to the, you'll progress as you get older. But,
Yeah.
I always kind of appreciated my own sort of ability to do a whole lot of different things.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like I was, that classic jack of all trades, master of none. I don't think I was the master of none. I think I was a damn good shortstop. I was a damn good actor. I'm a damn good producer. And my production company and all the stuff I've done has, involved all the things I enjoy.
Mhm.
From sports to kids to coaching to, dealing with people who need help, to, mentoring young people.
So what kind of documentaries do you think you guys really like? Do you have a preference, or is it more like this is your niche, your lane?
Well, I kind of got like knocked out by this idea of overcoming obstacles, just because I respect people who overcome obstacles, instead of getting crushed by it. So that's just been a fantastic thing for me to tell those stories. At this point, somebody was just asking me, there's sort of a not a festival, but a competition for documentary filmmakers hosted by, Ken Burns. So to apply, you have to be working on some documentary project in development with a historic bent to it. It's got to have something to do with history. And most of mine don't. Most of mine are just stories of the human spirit. But I recently got involved in what could be a project through a friend of mine who's also my orthopedic surgeon. He did both my shoulders. I had arthroscopic surgery on both shoulders, both knees, my hip. I've had my wife will tell me I had 12 surgeries since we've been married. And I actually interviewed Doc Kelly when I was doing a video for the Smoke and Joe Frazier Foundation. I knew Joe Frazier pretty well, and I'm good friends with his son. And I actually met Muhammad Ali a couple of times as well.
Wow.
So, but anyway, Doc Kelly's family owns a bar in Wilmington, Delaware, and it's a fourth generation bar. So he is actually John D. Kelly the fourth. But in the bar, there's a picture of the original John D. Kelly, who they also called Whiskers because he had a beard down to here, and he was a member of the Rough Riders. So there's a picture of him with the Rough Riders with Teddy Roosevelt in the picture.
From the Spanish War?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And he was the first owner of this bar. He bought the bar originally, and now it's still in the family 4 generations later. So I went to the Delaware Historical Society and said, let's do a documentary about Kelly's Logan House. And the guy liked the idea. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I think I may sort of pitch that to this Ken Burns thing, because it definitely encompasses history, as well as a lot of human nature stuff, human interest. So
I would love to see
that's a project I would like to do.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, that could be a very cool project.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I'll send you the picture of the Rough Riders. I was like, I was speechless. I said to Doc Kelly, I was like,
you just heard that. This is it was a sentence of truth, and shut the front door. Come on.
Are you kidding me? He goes,
Right.
no, because there was a big picture of Whiskers in the bar, but he's like, yeah, he's in this picture. He was in the Rough Riders. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That's just insane. So, and then the guy from Delaware, he knew the place and he liked the idea, but he was interested in it from the Logan side. So Logan was a general in the Civil War, and it was originally the Logan House. And then when John Kelly the first bought it, they were required to keep the name Logan in the name. So it became Kelly's Logan House. And that's what it is today.
I wonder if they still got the bill of sale for that place.
They do.
Oh my God.
I have a picture that was on the wall also. I took some pictures of the pictures on the wall, and I made Doc Kelly a little video with some Irish music and his family pictures. It's all, I got John D. Kelly the first, second, third, and my buddy's the fourth. So yes, I have the bill of sale from the original John D. Kelly.
Could I guess? And what was it, $45 or like $85?
I'd have to look at. I don't even remember. There are some stains on it, but I'll send you the Rough Riders and the bill of sale, just so A, you know I'm not bullshitting, and B, because it's interesting.
I would love to know, like, how much did a bar cost to make? Because today unless you got like $250,000, just be prepared. You're going to lose more real quick.
How many bars last? I mean, that was 18. I don't know what it was in the 1800s. So how many bars last 200 years?
It must have been a tavern at some point, because even in the hospitality regulations of the state of New York, it's all very like nitpicky, finicky, and kind of dumb. Because the services are similar, but the identification is different, whether it's a club, whether it's a tavern, whether it's an inn, is it a bar, is it a restaurant, all these little different things.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a tavern, bar, restaurant. They still serve food. I think they always serve food. But I think back then it was like this focal point of the community. And now it's still there in the middle of freaking Wilmington.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That is really cool. I'm a big fan of history too. And I kind of got my amazing education that I think I have because I've watched so many films, and I always took that as truth. Actually, to get a really good documentary here and there once in a while, just to kind of challenge all my social studies or world history skills. I like to see things like that, especially now that I could actually retain it all.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this satisfied what you were looking for when we decided to get together, but I've certainly enjoyed meeting you and talking to you. And I think
I can't wait to listen to your podcast.
We've had sort of similar paths, so I'm going to stay in touch with the Astoria Filmmakers Club and see where you go, and I'll send you some things. I'll tell you what our website is. You can check out some of the pieces I've worked on with some of the people I've described. And where do you live now?
Currently upstate New York in a little village called Goshen, where I grew up.
Oh, I mean, I know of it. Is that in Rockland County? What county is that?
Just above in Orange County.
What is it?
Orange County, the color.
Orange County. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Orange County Choppers, now the home of Legoland, just got built here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay in touch. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. I know I probably talked your ear off, but
I love these conversations.
I do too.
Sometimes they just flow. You don't know how much time goes. And normally I always wrap up a show kind of like on a very wise note. You had mentioned earlier, like, words of wisdom, like making the most of your time on Earth. And my curiosity is, like, at any point in time, did you ever hear the right words at the right time because her name now is actually Marcy Hopkins. And in my early days of going to like college, I got my hands on this book called The Right Words at the Right Times, and she was the author, and I believe her maiden name was Marcy Thomas or Thompson. And she has a collective of published politicians, athletes, including Shaquille O'Neal, all the sports, celebrities, where somehow in some way, once upon a time in their journey, they were actually given the right words at the right time that stuck with them their entire career. And my curiosity, Rob, is has anybody ever said the right words at the right time to you that's gotten you through almost everything and that stuck with you after all this time? Or
well, you know,
words of your own?
It's something that that I've heard a lot since I was told it the first time. I'd never heard it when it was first said to me. And it actually came up when I was in acting class in New York City. And we were, you know, Strasberg was a method acting school. So, you know, they had their sensory exercises, and, you know, the idea was to call up these emotions from real experiences and use that to fuel your emotional blah, blah, blah. But in that class, I was just acting. So you could tell me who I'm supposed to be, and I would defy anybody to tell me I'm not that person. But it was more through my sense of people and my experience and my ability to act. So I would see other people in this class, and, you know, they go through these sensory exercises and have these cathartic, they'd start crying, you know, from whatever depths and, you know, if I had to cry. I could make you think I just lost my brother. But it was just because I was able to. I was just acting, you know. I could be the person I was supposed to be. So I asked Sally Kirkland, who was a nut, but she was a great actress. She had an Academy Award nomination for a film called Anna that I worked on. She lost it that year to Cher, who won for Moonstruck or something. But yeah, Sally Kirkland's performance in Anna was memorable, remarkable. So anyway, I went to her and I was like, you know, all these people are like, you know, crying from this and that. And I actually had a pretty happy upbringing, you know? And so I didn't have a lot of trauma and tragedy to draw from, but I understood it. I could incorporate it, even though I didn't live through it. And so I told her, like, am I kind of emotionally shallow? Do I not have the emotional depth to do this? And she said, she goes, you're incredibly talented, and just fake it till you make it.
I've heard that so many times.
That was the first time I'd heard it. It was like in, you know, 77 or something.
I don't mean to laugh. It triggered me because I too have heard that so many times. It's like, how do you fake it though?
At the time, you fake it by acting like the person you're supposed to be. And I've used it. So, you know, when I taught at Temple for 5 years. So when they hired me, you know, they said, can you do this, that, and the other thing? And I was like, sure, even though I hadn't done it. And I remember I swear, I remember my first lecture in front of like 200 kids. Very first time. My knees were knocking. My knees were literally knocking. I was like shaking behind the podium. But I decided to act. Well, actually, the first time I really used it was in my first job when I moved to Philly. I got hired as a producer, and I was producing an infomercial, but it was high production. I had like a crew of, you know, 30 people working for me. I had never really directed a project of that scale before, ever. But I said I could. So all I did was tell myself to act like a director. You know what you think a director is and does? Be that. So I was acting. And I acted for about 10 minutes, telling the lighting guy what I would like it to look like, telling everybody what I would like to see, because I thought that's what I would be doing if I was really the director.
Sure.
And then, 10 minutes later, all those thoughts were out of my mind and I was the director. And that's exactly what happened. I faked it for 10 minutes and then everybody was asking me about what I'd like to have them do. And I was telling them, and I became the director. And I did the same thing when I was teaching that lecture. I was like, holy fuck, I got 200 kids and I've never even done this before. So, what would you do if you were really this professor? 10 minutes later, it was all natural. So that's been the most impactful advice, even though, like you said, and I said, I've heard it a million times since then, but that was the first time I had been given permission to fake it till you make it. In any situation where everybody believes I'm ready, even if I may be ready, but even if it's something I've never really been prepared for, I used that. I acted like a director. I acted like a professor. I acted like whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. And at some point, it just naturally becomes real. So I don't know what everybody else means by that, but that's what I took it to mean from Sally Kirkland. And she was talking mostly about acting.
Yeah.
But I've used it throughout my life. And I've walked into a lot of situations that are totally foreign to me, but I guarantee nobody else in that room has any idea that it was in any way foreign to me. So, acting has helped, and that freedom to act like you know what you're doing until you actually do, it's okay.
Wow, you heard it here, folks. What an outstanding conversation. And I can't. Do you have a date for your release of your podcast?
Well, I'm talking to a young guy that I'd worked with who I've been producing the podcasts, but he's pretty knowledgeable about how to either monetize it, promote it. So I'm trying to bring him on board to handle those aspects. Greg and I are going to create a promo that we'll release on YouTube, talking about why we're doing it and telling people that it's going to launch on such and such a date and be ready. And I just want to look up Derek Sparks's
Oh, he's got a podcast of some kind or an Instagram?
No, it's not a podcast, but it's his Derek Sparks.
Derek Sparks' homegoing. He passed away.
We are all called. That's what he said. We are all called.
Is that like a quote that he always said, or is it?
Yeah, we are all called. So the first thing I asked him in the podcast is, what does that mean? And it was all about living with purpose and urgency.
Yeah.
Like, don't waste the time you have here. And ironically, he was almost out of time, but he didn't know that. So even when he thought he was still sort of God's gift, because he was, a stud, and he was so impactful and helped so many people and so popular, we are all called. And that's what he lived by. And that was inspiring to me.
Did he pass away on November 23rd, 21?
I'm sure he did.
It says, I think if this is him, like he was born April the 8th in 1973.
Could have been. Yeah, in Texas.
He looks like a Spanish guy, hair like kind of down, but almost like a dark goatee, facial hair.
Well, he wasn't Spanish. He was African American,
Oh,
as
then
far
it's
as I
probably
know.
just a picture. This guy is,
Yeah.
it might be him. There's something on YouTube about Derek Sparks. He was homegoing, and it's actually his funeral.
Yeah.
It was actually released on this platform called CBSR, and
Mm.
it's a church with Pastor Terrence Proctor, the church by the side of the road in Seattle, Washington.
I'm sure that's him because he went to Wazoo.
All righty, then I'll definitely, you know what, I'll take a look at his funeral service, and
Yeah, he started a nonprofit called Cleats for Cancer.
oh, cool.
He started another nonprofit for homeless kids because he'd gotten a call that one of his football players was at the police station, and he was like, oh crap, what did he do? And he goes down there and found out the kid was living on the street. He was homeless, one of his players. So he ended up starting a foundation for homeless kids as well. He was just a guy that saw the need and answered it. We are all called. He was called. He was called to have an impact, and he did. And he was cut short, but he did. He's somebody that left a powerful legacy in his short time. And apparently he was like one of the great running backs of all time in high school and college.
Oh, like Booby Miles from Friday Night Lights type of guy?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, which is also Texas.
Right.
Texas is crazy, man. But Mater Day High School is cream of the crop. It's like the top athletic school in the country. But he'd been to like 3 different high schools. And then when he transferred from the last one to go to Mater Day, the school he left sabotaged his records. So he got in trouble with the NCAA because his records had been spoiled.
So like they were tarnished deliberately?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was part of his book, Lessons of the Game. That people can hurt you if they want to.
Don't I know it? Oh yeah.
But then, despite all of that, he became like Dale Brown became this most giving, generous helper.
It could have it could have jaded his character, make him, he could have become very bitter.
Absolutely. Which is exactly what he didn't do.
And it's almost like a very high spiritual quality to actually maintain that level of composure. And there's a really good story in the Bible about the book of Joseph where his family sold him into slavery. And next thing you know, he's the right hand of Pharaoh during the famine a couple decades later, give or take. And so that's it's unfortunate, and it's a horrible thing to not know what they were gonna do had they still been with us.
Yeah.
The thing that they did do, they're like, when you're putting out a fire, there's only so far you could actually carry the bucket. So when you do the chain gang and you pass it on, you put it out quicker.
Yeah.
Many hands.
Yeah, no, but I think you're right though, that I think it's the highest form of character to overcome whatever people throw in front of you and still achieve greatness and generosity.
It's more so like as long as others honestly implement that form of character into their lives, because everybody's going to benefit from it then.
Yeah, well, that's what the 3P Champions is sort of about. And I think your analogy to Joseph is appropriate. I think that's exactly what happened. He got abused, misused, and still emerged as this loving, giving coach, teacher, mentor, sponsor, human being. the other thing about Dale Brown. So, he was incredible. Despite the fact, like Derek Sparks, only different, his father, Dale Brown's father, left their home 2 days before Dale Brown was born, and he never met him.
Really?
And despite all that, he's gone on to live this incredibly humane life. So like Derek Sparks, he could have spent his whole life bitter that his father left without even having met his new son. But he didn't. And he took his wisdom and learning from his mother, who was strong, as did Derek Sparks, and went on to become these glowing examples of the highest levels of humanity. So that's what I appreciate the most.
I really hope you get a fan base and do like an early release, what they do, kind of like how you see on streaming platforms. You get the first 3 episodes in the same day, and then all of a sudden—
I don't know anything about that. So maybe in a separate conversation, you can educate me a little bit about what might be the way to go.
It's like a trick. It's almost like a form of seduction almost. And I'll definitely tell you more about it. But basically, there's such a popular trend across every streaming platform for all new releases on video streaming. And even Disney did it recently. And I'm like, you jerks. So they'll actually show you. Apple TV Plus did it recently. And just this past week, when Jeremy Renner's Renovations series on Disney Plus came out, I was waiting to binge watch this for the longest time, but they only released the first 3 episodes in one day, and I'm hooked on it, like really hooked, impressed. And I was waiting for the 4th episode, but I had to wait a full week. And it's actually more interesting to do that because it's got a deeper hook in me now, and I'm actually anticipating the following week for the following episode. So even with streaming platforms, when you release the first 3 episodes, it's actually kind of smart and seductive, but I hate that because I want to see the whole thing, but you don't want to take it for granted by
Well,
binging.
I'm going to send you the Derek Sparks one prior to release.
Deal. Off.
And I'll send you the second one we're doing is about this guy, Anthony Pryor. Now, Anthony Pryor had an NFL career. He played, I think, for 6 years in the league and 4 years in Canada, but he was cut by 7 NFL teams.
Oh,
and he never stopped believing in himself. And finally, Dennis Green of the Vikings had him, the story's incredible, but had him show up at camp and had him run 60 or the 40, and he had the fastest time of the year. And he gave him a shot. But 7 times he got cut and he kept coming back. And that's what I appreciate about him.
Not so much an underdog story, but some sort of tenacity story where
it is. Absolutely. So I'm going to send you both of those. And when you check them out, get back in touch with me. Let's talk again.
I'll trade you that for part 1 and part 2 of my very first film.
Please do. Yeah,
it's on it.
Whatever you got.
Yo, Rob, I love this conversation. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are who missed the whole podcast, rewind it and listen again, because you got to make the most of your time. We are all called, but if not, just fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
And for those of you,
this is the way life works. If you believe it, if you don't believe it, that's yours. But I believe that we were put here together. We were put on this Zoom call, and you took the step, then I took the step, and here we are. And I hope we know each other for a long time.
I hope for another 35 years. Not
exactly.
Like God's honest truth.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in, everybody. And always remember to never forget community, creativity, and joy. That's our show. We'll see you next time.
Hey, Phil, thank you so much.
Rob, my pleasure.
I'll be in touch.
Ciao for now.
Ciao.